All right, on today's show, I'm going to be talking about how women perceive certain things as weakness in men and what you can do to rectify this. So the basic topic is going to be men, 5 things that you do that will make you look weak. Now, a lot of guys, you do stuff and it makes you look weak and you don't know that it makes you look weak. And I'm not talking about the obvious stuff like just blatant brown nosing or blatant simping. There's a lot of subtle shit that men do when interacting with women, and women might perceive that as weakness. They might not say it, and in most cases, they don't say it. So you really don't know what you're doing. You don't know whether you're doing wrong or right or whatever, but the woman's reaction is pretty adverse, or the woman's reaction to you is kind of standoffish from that point on. A lot of times women don't know that they look at you as being weak. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Sometimes it's conscious, sometimes it's covert, sometimes it's overt. So a lot of times they don't know. But the majority of the time they do know whether they look at you as weak or not. And fellas, I'm going to give you some tips on how to avoid that. Let me break some of this music down. That Michael Jackson makes me want to get up and start moonwalking in this bitch. So, one thing that guys do that women perceive as being weak, and I want some of you guys to write this down. This is going to be a good lesson today. Write some of this shit down. It's 5 things. Number 1, fellas, acting overly concerned about women. Many times women perceive that as being weak in a man. Like when you're checking up on a woman all the time, like, hey, how you doing? Are you fine? Are you okay? That type shit. You're trying to rectify her problems. You're trying to almost be a Captain Save A Hoe. But you're just really overly concerned about her well-being. Now, I know men are taught to be that way, but women, in many cases, they perceive that as being weak. Women are kind of gravitated towards guys who kind of don't give a shit about them. Your attitude has to be like whatever towards women sometimes. You have to be more of a challenge. If you're too accommodating, if you're too concerned about her needs or her well-being, hey, I was just calling to see if you wanted something to eat. I'm going to the store. Did you want something? That type shit, they look at that as weak. So in some cases, you have to balance it out. You have to be somewhat sensitive, but you have to be a little bit standoffish. You have to be somewhat like an I don't give a fuck type of vibe. You have to have somewhat of an I don't give a fuck type of vibe. You feel me? So do not be overly concerned. It's cool to be concerned to a degree, but do not be overly concerned about a female's needs and her well-being, because they will look at that as weakness. Now, number 2, being lured in and engaging into petty arguments with a woman. Fellas, if a woman is bickering and arguing and complaining about some bullshit, something real petty, and you are actually engaging her in an argument or a conversation, a lot of times they look at that as weak. Many cases they look at that as weak because they know when they're being